Hello, everybody, and welcome or welcome back. Whoops, flies. Welcome or welcome back to the second shelf and to another recent reads on Sunday. In a video in which I talk about the books that I finished or started or am currently still working on. And there are a couple of books that I did finish but don't want to talk extensively here. Two memoirs, Small Bodies of Water by Nina Mingia Pauls, and another memoir translated from the Korean, The Memoirs of Lady Hye Gyung, because both those books were part of my 1001 books by women I need to read before I die project. So I will talk about both of those in a video that will go up on Wednesday, I think. So I finished those two, but I talk about it in a different video. How's that for a teaser? The third book that I finished and that I did want to talk about is another nonfiction book, an essay collection by Rebecca Solnit, A Field Guide to Getting Lost, first published in 2005. If you follow my channel for any length of time, you know that I really, really admire Rebecca Solnit's work. And this book was also one of the books that I bought, I think in 2019 maybe, and didn't read. I made a whole revisit because I've been on BookTube for 6 years, so I looked at all the books that I presented in book hauls since I started the channel, and the ones that I didn't read, I put in a list, and this was on the list, and so I am off to a good start for the book haul revisit unread books, because I read that immediately. So that's a good sign, isn't it? This was, for me, not Solnit's strongest work. I really loved the idea or the premise or the theme behind the essay collection. Solnit almost always has a theme that runs through her collections. And here, obviously, it's getting lost. What does it mean to get lost in your life, or very literally in the woods, or, and I thought that was a really, very interesting and fascinating topic. And the first maybe 4 essays I thought were absolutely brilliant, but the second half of the book just didn't engage me as much. I felt a little bit as if Solnit got lost herself in the topic and sort of lost focus, at least for me. So it's in Goodreads terms a 3.5 star book for me. But there were essays in there that I thought were really, really good. So I bumped it up to 4 stars for any of you who might be interested. I think there are other books by her that I would recommend before this one, but I'm a completist. So if I really like an author, I will read anything by them. And I'm not sorry that I read it, but it was not her strongest work. The next book I finished was another memoir by Sophia Almaria, The Girl Who Fell to Earth, published in 2005, I think. Let me check. No, I'm lying. 2012. Can't get my number straight today. And Sophia Almaria is the daughter of an US-American white woman and a Bedouin from Qatar, who immigrated to the US and later went back. And I picked this book because Invisible Cities, I think Qatar is one of the 2 countries in June even, but I read it in May because, I can't stick to a schedule for the life of me. And I liked it. It is a memoir of her life, but it starts with how her parents met. And then her growing up, the family having difficulties in terms of the marriage doesn't really work out, and her various visits to Qatar, where her father comes from and where he returns to regularly. I don't want to give any spoilers, even though it's nonfiction. And my problem with this was that, first of all, if it's a memoir and you start with your parents, how they met, how they fell in love, how they made a life before you were born, you need to tell me where you know that from, whether it's your father or your mother or an aunt or the grandparents. I mean, that's fine, but it's not your memoir because you don't remember anything from that time. You weren't even born. So I don't like that. I need to know where the information comes from and that she reflects on the information and not just present them as factual. It's just a pet peeve of mine. I just don't like it very much. And the other thing, I thought, again, like with the Solnit book, the first half of the book was really engaging and interesting. I learned a lot about the culture and her struggle to combine two cultures, if you will, and also the struggle of her parents, and especially her father, who is a wanderer, not with an O, but with an A, so Bedouin, who is not used to living in one place, about his family back in Qatar, I think you pronounce it in English. But then again, there was no real red thread through the book. Sophia Almeria is a teacher. I think she teaches in Princeton, if I remember correctly. So she should know better, I would say. And it just fizzled out. And I didn't know anymore why she would tell me certain stories or certain things that happened to her. And then at a certain point, after 250 pages or something, the book just stopped. That's how I felt. And so it was not 100% success for me. I was happy, though, to read something from an author who at least has a part, through the father, heritage of Qatar, because I don't think I ever read more than one or two books coming from there. So I recommend it, not really, but, maybe you are interested more in the background of this author, then you might want to give it a try. But for me, it just did not work that well. So those were the books that I finished since I last filmed a video, and that was not a Recent Reads, by the way, but that was the tops and flops. The book that I'm currently reading and that I will finish this, maybe today, but certainly tomorrow, buddy read with Heidi, and we're reading another memoir, The Ungrateful Refugee by Dina Nayeri. And Dina Nayeri was born in Iran in the early 1980s or maybe late 1970s. Like I said, can't get my numbers straight today. And she fled with her mother when she was around 9 or 10. They first also fled to the United Arabian Emirates, Qatar, Dubai, and then to Italy. And finally, when she was about 10 or 11, they arrived in the US, where they stayed. So they became citizens of the US at some point. But this is mostly about the refugee part of her. She also wrote a novel that was published a couple of years ago, 2017, called Refuge, which is dealing with the same subject. Like I said, it's a buddy read with Heidi, and I will reserve my final thoughts once I finished it and checked in with Heidi. But again, unfortunately, not not 100%. The subject matter, I think, is absolutely fascinating, topical, and important. How we treat refugees, what it means to be a refugee. Her mother and she and her brother, by the way, had to flee Iran because her mother converted to Christianity and was persecuted for that. The father stayed Muslim and stayed behind in Iran. So that idea, what it means to have to leave your country and to find a new home, but for more importantly, or more specifically, the time that you are in the asylum proceedings. And there are parts in here where she talks about her own experience, but large parts are either more sort of kind of essays about the topic of asylum as such, and stories of other asylum seekers that she met later in life. So not while she was an asylum seeker herself, but later. And it doesn't really come together for me as a whole. Again, it's like these bits and pieces, and some of them are more interesting than others, but it's not so far, but maybe the last third will, make it all good. That's why I reserve my final judgment. But interesting parts, but there is a lack of self-reflection also in the book, that she is, because she's telling me about her childhood when it comes to her own life, and there is very little self-reflection in terms of why does that bother me so much? Why was this something that I still struggle with 20 or 30 years later? Yeah, but again, I'm babbling on. Final judgment when I read it, after I have finished it. And then there's one more book I want to talk to you about, and that is the book that I will start either tomorrow or Tuesday, and that's the first book in for the BooktubePrize semifinals. I'm judging fiction, Group B, and the first I have to read, I think, 2 books, and a third one that I kind of read and then didn't finish, so make it 3. But the first one I picked is this one, by Kirstin, Valdez, Quade, The 5 Wounds, obviously published in 2021 because it's the BooktubePrize of 2022, so it has to be published in the US in 2021. By the way, I will leave links to the BookTube channel in the description. This is set in Mexico, and it's over Holy Week, and it's a family portrait from what I understood. The Angel, the 15-year-old daughter, is coming home, being pregnant, and then we follow the first year of the child from various points of views, 5 generations coming together, so to speak. That's all I know. And that's all I want to know. I really appreciate it, certainly for the BooktubePrize, if I don't know that much about a book before going in. So this will be the first one that I read for the semifinals. So this was, for me, an extremely short video, not even 15 minutes. Anyway, the books that I read and that I'm still reading. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, I'm really looking forward to your comments, and I'll see you all soon in the next one.